I kind of want to forget it and let it go. All of these tattoos are as a direct response to the feelings I felt when I was in my 20s.
At that time, yeah.
That moment with her is kind of right there. I'd had enough, and I called Stu up and said, look, I need to get out.
I don't know a football fan who hates another club as much as you hate Arsenal. Tisky, I've just thought, I have one and I'll feel it, because I know what I'm like.
Yeah, it's like you'll see a Polish man. This is not, is it?
I don't know.
The fact is, I've seen multiple Polishmen at 10 a.m. on a Sunday morning bowling around with a Tisky, and if it's all right for them, it's all right for me.
Yeah, it's a good way to live your life. Right, welcome back to The Process. This is a different one, because it's Flames, and I'm looking forward to this one.
I don't know why you want to talk to me.
I know, I thought you might say that.
I don't know why.
Oh, you got one ready. Cheers.
I don't know why, because I've seen the others, and the others, like Smith has an incredible story. Pajak does as well at Redmen TV. He's done amazing things with his career and the shit that he's gone through as well. And obviously the last one with the guy about suicide and stuff. So the only reason I can think that you'd want to do this for me, and I'm really happy to, because I really love the process. I think what you've come up with is really good.
Cheers, mate.
But is because of our relationship.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. 3 years we've worked together, and I would have thought by now you'd know that the start of the video is crucial, where you're getting really excited about what you can offer.
Sorry, yeah.
No, but actually, this kind of showcases what me and you are about, actually. And I thought this was like the right kind of set as well. Just because this is where we do one for the weekend, which has kind of become our favourite thing of the week. But I was thinking about it, and I was thinking about you in bed last night, and I was thinking
we have shared a bed.
We have shared a bed, yeah, a few times. No, I wanted to talk about like the last 3 years that we've had, because Flav is certainly my best mate in this bizarre YouTube world that I personally stepped into on, I think it was like November the 15th, and I came into an office, met a few different people, obviously, one of which was you, and I just presumed that you'd been there a while. You'd been there
5 days.
5 days.
Yeah.
And Flav is stepping out, and is still always going to be a part of Ball Street and going to be a part of our videos and stuff. But in terms of that day-to-day working in an office together, you're moving on.
Yeah, for sure.
Why are you moving on? I
just feel like it's the right time. I'm able to do it financially, although it's a risk. That I'm gambling that I can bring in enough money to support myself and my family. And there is a family, there's my missus and the 2 kids, got a new dog. Mostly it's because there's an opportunity there. I set up a podcast called The Fighting Cock 7.5 years ago. I've only been able to, through my experiences at Ball Street, learn enough in terms of business and brand deals and position yourself correctly and how to handle yourself professionally. I've learned enough to take those learnings and apply it to my own product. And I've always had faith in that product and the faith in the podcast, and I understand it completely. Yeah. I can't tell you how, over the last 3 years, frustrating it's been for me having to second guess myself constantly, because there's the additional pressures involved.
You've always kind of said that. Unlike most people in this YouTube football space, we've been so lucky to have a clear, calm, full-time job. Yeah. There's so many examples of people who are kind of out there hustling. Stephen Howson's a great example. Statman Dave, guys that have they got into it, and for those guys it was TFR, and then TFR's evolved and changed, and they got kind of pushed out into that world where you're that sort of freelance world ultimately, or kind of having your own company and doing your own thing and basing it off the influence and I hate that word's a bit minging, but the audience that you've created yourself. But for you, you haven't had to do that, and now you're about to do it. It's a calculated, brave decision for you.
Yeah, I mean it is calculated, and it's brave in that it's scary for me, because I do need to. You have to make money. You have to buy kids Christmas presents. You've got to make sure that they're happy as possible, and unfortunately, the world we live in, or fortunately, depends how you look at it, because I could live in another world where it's not money, it's about surviving. The key thing about it was about my happiness and about my well-being, and I don't want to be beholden to anybody, and I kind of felt like I had an opportunity with the Fighting Cock to do that. We have a small audience in comparing it to Ball Street, TFR, other podcasts like the Football Ramble. It's small, but the audience is invested.
They care, yeah.
They care because of what the Fighting Cock was set up to do and how we positioned ourselves. And the irony of that is it was never about making money, and I think that's how we got these people involved.
Yeah.
But I think they perhaps, I hope, understand that in order to move on to the next chapter, we've got to rely on them.
Yeah, there's going to be a few pennies needed.
Yeah, a few pennies.
It's support, isn't it? You, more than anyone I know in this space, love podcasting. I think you've, like you were saying earlier there's always been an element where you're in this world where it's, it's that video production element of it more so than just those great conversations. You've had that feeling of fear and doubt. Yeah. And whereas with your podcast, you don't have that. And so I think people would like to hear about that kind of stuff.
Experiences of that. But it's because of those experiences through the podcast where I've learned unhealthy habits, I think, about how I produce work, how I work, how I portray myself on camera or otherwise.
Right. What does that mean?
I feel uncomfortable. I feel uncomfortable now. I'm not enjoying it.
Should we?
I don't enjoy this. But I understand that
it's how it works.
Yeah.
Well, it's how a lot of people think it works.
Yeah. So
you fight against that as well. Like for One for the Weekend, the podcast that I'm guessing a lot of people that know about my channel will know about that podcast, which we do on Ball Street, which you go check out. But even that, you didn't like. You probably still don't like the fact that we film it.
So there's a massive thing in YouTube about calling things podcasts. What podcast means now to people is just a long chat on YouTube. They're completely different formats. They work in their own ways. And what makes a great documentary on TV doesn't make a great documentary. It's purely audio content.
Yeah.
I think it's an obsession and an infatuation with ego that means that you have to put a camera on. And I'm sorry, Jim. That's just the way I feel. But
that's fine.
And I think every YouTuber is full of ego, and you have to be in order to feel comfortable.
Fucking hell, mate.
Doing that.
Get over here.
No, but you're assuming that the ego is a negative thing. My inner ego feels uncomfortable with
that added element.
Anything other than anything additional to who I am as a person. So if I'm being extrovertly or overly excited, it doesn't feel comfortable with me because it's just not who I am. I don't feel comfortable. I think that someone's going to think I'm a prick. And that in itself is about ego. You don't want the other person down there thinking about, and I understand the hypocrisy in that. What I tend to do on camera is go the other way and regress. And I've found a niche somehow for myself over the last 3 years of being the reluctant person in front of camera.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people see through that bullshit, and it is bullshit. A lot of it's how I feel, but most of it's just for the fact that it's fun. It's fun to play off each other that way.
That's true.
And when I'm digging out people in the comments on the One for the Weekend, I'm not genuinely. Should I break the illusion? I'm not genuinely digging these people out or have any ill will feeling to any YouTuber. In fact, my favourite comments are the ones that are the most negative on YouTube. It's
a joke that's been in the office for 3 years. It's a joke that people won't know.
No.
But Flav came to Ball Street just to make a website.
So my background,
not to make thousands of videos we've made.
Well, my background is in journalism and editorial. Got a degree in journalism. I worked in a magazine in publishing for 12 years before coming to Ball Street. I was an online editor, I was a hard print editor, I'd published my own magazines. I was very much into journalism and storytelling, and I still am. But the reason why I got a job at Ball Street was because of the podcast, because my podcast got awarded for one of the best football podcasts in the UK at the Football Bloggers Awards.
Good night, was it?
It was a great night. We didn't win. Embarrassed ourselves by storming out when we didn't win. But we felt like it was a kind of funny thing to do, because it's like the Football Bloggers Awards. What the fuck does it matter? I mean, it's not.
It was a piss up.
It ain't like the Oscars. Was it a piss up? Fuck no. Like, I've never been so mullered, and we didn't win, so we stormed out. Anyway, I met Matt, who runs Ball Street, who is the founder of Ball Street, and I was inebriated in various ways. And I met him, and something, for whatever reason, resonated with Matt. And I think at that point, when meeting me, he thought that I'd be good on camera.
Is that what you think he thought? He thought good on camera, not just great for the business?
No, I think it'd be good on camera. I think that also I had some sort of ethical leanings about how branding is used in football and how certain brands are toxic and certain brands could resonate with fans. I think maybe you saw something in that. They mentioned before about me being a kind of social barometer for Ball Street, which is fucking mad. You know.
No, I agree with that.
Yeah, on that night, we kept in contact afterwards, and they interviewed me, and I basically needed out of my previous job. I've been doing it for 12 years, and it was very taxing on the, emotionally. I did a lot of work with kids, young people in difficult situations, producing material that was really hard to process. And
why did you do that job?
Well, when I was 15, I got involved in that organisation to help me when I was a kid, and I was working with them from 15 until 21 when I got an actual job with them, a full-time job. I went to university and carried on working with them in bits and pieces, and when I came back there was a role that opened up there. Right. So I just naturally was drawn back to that charity. It was called Exposure, and it was a charity that helped kids. Not all kids had difficulties, but we worked with a lot of kids in gangs. We looked at kids who've been abused. We got kids in care homes, and we worked with kids who just wanted to succeed in the media, and we trained them all. And that's how I ended up there, and ended up spending 12 years. And after the 11 or 12 years, it's exhausting, and I wanted to do something that wasn't that. That was so hard.
I don't think I've worked a day in my life. I think, and
that's
I think
not true. I've watched you work very, very hard.
But it's not work for me. I honestly don't. There's always an element of guilt that helps drive me along, because I just think I'm so lucky to try and go, think of an idea and make it happen and make someone laugh or make someone feel something. I think that's just such a wicked thing.
Yeah.
But I think
that's good that you feel that way.
Yeah, I guess so.
I got to a point where I wasn't getting that good feeling inside. One of the things I would do would be help them to develop their English by talking about why they were with us. The final project that I worked on when I knew that I had to leave was a project for victim support, which is an amazing charity that it helps people that are a victim of crime. And that might be someone getting mugged, or something your bike or your phone getting nicked, or it might be something horrendous has happened to you, and this organisation helps support you. And I've worked with 7 young people that had accessed this service, and I had to do it for 2 weeks, interviewing these people, and they explained to me what had happened to them, and then I would write that up. And I was just like, this is fucking horrible. I don't even want to repeat some of the stuff that I heard. So I had enough. Yeah. And I called Stu up and said, look, I need to get out. And we talked previously about working.
There was that connection with Matt, but then there was... So
I'd had conversations with both of them about potentially working here, and they liked what I was about and that. And then I said, look, I've got to speed this up. And Stu, to his credit and Matt's credit, said, no, look, we've got faith in you, and we want you to be a part of our team. And they did what they said they were going to do, which was bring me in. And they wanted me to become a content producer.
I know there's been moments where we're going, fuck are we doing? Like, what the fuck are we talking about? Or who are we talking about? Why are we doing another video on this or that? And that's just the truth of that any media person has to do. Like, I worked in entertainment before that, and I would get up for a night shift, get in a car, and on the way I'd have to go through the Daily Mail gossip to find trash to create a segment for them to be talking about, and I hated it. And so there are always those elements. In football, it's a hell of a lot easier because you can always it's a sport that we love, so you can always be interested in that.
It's true, but also the way I'd always qualify that, because I understand what you're getting at, you look at some of these stories that we've talked about over the last 3 years and you think, this is fucking dribble, being honest.
Yeah, and I think there's been moments as well where we've gone...
But it's not dribble to people that are absorbing it. For us to go through the process of producing that type of content, and it's not just Ball Street, I'm talking about all football content.
Because I think also for us, at Ball Street, we have...
Sorry, just to finish, it offers a distraction. It offers distraction, and it gives people a distraction from what is otherwise can be a difficult life that people are living. Yeah. If people listen to One for the Weekend podcast and we offer them an hour's respite that they wouldn't otherwise have.
Oh, mate, it's amazing.
So what's normal and trivial to us could have an impact. And we've had people message us to say that.
Yeah, totally. And it's incredible. Look, what I meant more was a point where there's certainly been moments where we've gone, we want to make heartfelt, integrity-filled stuff. And then there's moments where, you've got to kind of keep the machine going and do stuff and talk about stuff that people are talking about. And you look at these other channels that are just going straight clickbait. That is the world that we live in now, because it's not as simple as you pick up a newspaper and you go, okay, well, I'm going to go to page 2 at some point, so I'll find out what that headline is then, and it can be an informative headline. Instead, I'll scroll down and it's based on the headline that I'm going to click on whatever it is, and so that clickbait element of it, that's something that we struggle with at times, definitely.
Yeah, I've gone through the process of not wanting to do anything that's clickbait to now going, this is just the fatalist attitude. This is the system. This is the only thing that works. If you don't, like the last process you did, it was seen by 3,000 people so far.
It's less. It's like 1,500 something.
Right,
like that.
1,500.
Cool.
But it's probably the most meaningful piece of work that you've done.
Yeah.
And that's what I struggle with, because what is it? If you can be successful, you can be successful and not appeal to the masses, but you're producing just easily absorbed content, or you can do something that's going to be less valuable in terms of monetary terms, but you're actually hits a different chord. Or you can play the system long enough to actually produce the content that you want to produce. And one of the things I love about True Geordie, he did what he needed to do in order to get to the position he's in now. And I'm not saying the content he used to produce is poor, but the value he's producing now is
massive,
massively different and massively more important, because conversations with the people that he's had on his podcast actually impacts people. And that's what's incredible about YouTube, really. There's a lot of naysayers, especially in the football community, about people that appear on YouTube, and it's been an issue for mine, how I'd be perceived by my own. But what people often don't see is the massively positive impact that these influencers have on the people that subscribe to their channels.
Yeah, totally. What made you like writing?
I was always good at it. I don't like writing. I fucking hate writing. It's the most torturous thing I've ever had to do.
Why would you be good at it if you don't like it?
I just always was able. There's the only good thing the only thing I did well at school. I got 4 GCSEs. That's what I got. I failed at school. I hated it. I went to a really aggressive school. I was a late bloomer. I was a feminine-looking
Me too.
teenage boy with long blonde hair.
Yeah.
I went to one of the hardest schools in North London, Highbury Grove.
Why the long blonde hair? Like you told me that a few times. Why the long blonde hair when you're in such an aggressive school?
I was unaware. I didn't understand my surroundings. I was one of only 2 white kids in my class, and I'm not saying it was rough because I was only white kids and there was mostly black men or black boys in my class. But when you're white, when you become an ethnic minority in your own classroom, it's eye-opening. I had a glimpse into what it might be like to be an actual ethnic minority growing up in London, and why I had no time for racists and racism. There was fights going on every day, people bringing bats to school, other schools coming down fighting, kids not being very nice, taking your dinner money, all the obvious things that you could expect. I had a knife put to my throat at must have been 13.
In school?
In school, yeah.
In school?
In a stairwell, someone just came up, put a knife to my throat. I remember it vividly because it went like that and then bent around to a point, and then the curve was on my throat, and he's asking for my dinner money or whatever, and I remember not having any, and then walked away unfazed. Looking back, it's like how was you not pissing your pants?
Yeah.
How was you not terrified or going home and telling your parents? But I never told anyone. That's the first time. I've told my missus, but that's the first time I've ever told anybody, and now everyone else knows. Not that it matters. It don't matter. It's not a big thing.
Nah.
But the fact that it's not a big thing is alarming, and that's not what an environment that children should be growing up in.
So why do you think you are happy with that quieter life? Because that's
I
what
didn't
that's
think
what
I
you're
would.
stepping
You know
into
what?
a little bit, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure, definitely quieter. Right now I live on a farm in a place, a small tiny hamlet called Marston. I met my missus on holiday at a festival, and I didn't realise at the time how important that was for me, and how important it was for me to change my life. Because when I met her and I went to visit her house for the first time after coming back from a festival and whatnot, as soon as I got there, I was like, I feel at home, and I don't even know this girl. I barely knew her. Do you know what I mean? I met her on holiday, and you know what happens on holiday, and then you come back to reality and nothing happens. And I went to this house, and I was like, this is what I want. I knew from the minute this is what I want, and every step that I've made has headed back there.
Yeah, it's a funny feeling, that moment when you kind of go, it's not a like slap around the face and then I was in love. It's just a really strong glow of there's no doubt.
Are you talking about her or the house?
Being in love.
Yeah.
Being in love with and being in love with someone, and then in time, because I think you'd been together a little while when we met.
I'd been about a year.
About a year. And I think you were I was obviously a lot further down the road. As a bloke, I think especially when you're a fun-loving bloke. Flav is the life and soul of this office. And so but you enjoy a night out because you like to talk to people.
Yeah.
And as I felt the same. And so you've got to leave that behind.
What the shagging around bit? Is that what you're
getting
at?
No, I'm not getting at that. I don't need to go down the road. All I'm saying is that there is a moment I think, because a lot of people that watch my channel are blokes. So I think there is a moment when you're with someone for a while that you then go, okay, is this it? And I think I remember that period with you, and it took probably 2 months, but then you were there and that was it.
I think
it took me longer.
Yeah, I think I had a 14-year relationship from 18 to 32. I had to go through a process after that relationship in order to understand what I want, and that involved a lot of nefarious activity, and which I wouldn't change, but I didn't enjoy very much. And I met Ollie, and I was so far from getting a relationship with her at the beginning because I was taking loads of drugs and I was shagging women. And I just met this girl on holiday, and the more time I spent with her and the more I would talk, it just was clear.
Yeah.
It became clear, even if I didn't know it myself. But what I would say is the moment I caught her eye, or she caught mine, depends on who you're talking to, I've never forgotten that moment. And that moment with her is kind of right there. That's even great. Now I think back I can see it, I can picture it right now. We're in a dance tent. I'm peeled off my nut. I'm looking at her.
Still remembers it.
And and I just catch her eye. And do you know what the embarrassing thing is? I was talking to her mate.
Yeah.
I was talking to her mate, and I was cracking on. And I was like, and I looked across, and she was there, and I was like, fucking hell, who is that? And I still remember that, and I still hold that. And
that's amazing,
we're engaged now, and we're, got a dog.
And a fridge.
I bought a fridge.
Let's talk about a different kind of love.
Yeah.
Okay, 5 brothers. Male camaraderie is a big thing in your life.
Yeah.
This is what I'm getting onto.
Okay, fair.
And so you've got 5, you have 5 brothers,
mm-hmm.
And I think it's something that I really enjoyed in our friendship as well, is that, I wouldn't even know how to describe it, but it's that same kind of thing.
Yeah. And
with the Fighting Cock and the podcast, and I think even like the lads in the office, you've got a good way with blokes. That's not if that makes any sense.
No, it does.
And the Fighting Cock, its essence is
laddishness.
A group of lads in a safe space,
mm-hmm.
being able to have a chat.
Yep.
Do you think your ability in that situation is down to the 5 brothers?
Yeah. Undoubtedly. I think it's a strange one with my brothers because we're not all full brothers. There's 6 marriages between my mum and their respective partners. Is that right? Yeah, 3.
6 out of 5.
3. There's. Your
dad is an absolute.
No. I mean, you should see. His penis is like a slug as well. I don't know how he's done it.
What, flat?
It's just like it's like a button mushroom. It's funny because he talks about this on the pod and we do live shows, and he's like, "Hey, Dad, the slug," and he's like, "Nah. But it is, 100% is. And it's weird that my brothers and I have a name for his penis, but it's true. We come from quite a dysfunctional set of relationships on our parents' behalf, but all of us, all kind of the difficulties that our parents faced, we used that unconsciously, I think, to be drawn to each other and make sure that we're so tight. That male on male bond is so I feel so comfortable with it that it comes natural to a relationships I develop with you guys and with the others, you especially, but the others in the room upstairs. I guess I don't know.
Why do you think we get on? Because that's the other thing I was thinking last night.
I think we come from different backgrounds, don't we? And because deep down, Jim, you're a lovely human being, and you're kind, and
as are you,
and you're so funny, and I I don't know. I think we started the journey together at Ball Street. I think that helped.
Yeah.
But I just felt, I don't know, I just always thought I'd love that guy.
But I think it's interesting because I don't like people who are similar to me. But at the same time, there has to be a kind of like baseline that's similar. Because I don't think, what I find weird about our relationship is that you know how I'm feeling. I can see that you can see how I'm feeling. And I think over 3 years, I can tell when you're fed up or whatever as well. And I think that's interesting.
My if I can blow my own trumpet for a second, the most useful thing I've had throughout my life has been able to read other people. And I think that goes back to my school days where I have to read every situation in order to stay out of a horrible situation.
Right. I'm confused by why people don't have that.
Some people it's difficult. It's a different attribute. Some people are gifted with sex appeal and charm. Other people are gifted with. I mean, we've got both those.
Yeah, I mean,
we've got that and the reading people.
Give an example that we don't have.
Yeah.
Some people are like unintelligent.
Some people are able to have to be so single-minded that they achieve success where others aren't.
Those kind of values and like what's the word? Attributes that you get from having 5 brothers or from being in that kind of manly state a lot of the time. Do you think, what aspects of that do you think you've transferred into the Fighting Cock podcast?
It's just being understanding. It's about being likable, I guess.
How do you know what likable is, though?
I don't. I just know that I've got people around me on the podcast that are my closest friends outside of my family. And if they think what we're doing is good and they feel comfortable in that environment and they're enjoying this conversation, that there'll be people out there that also do it. And the crux of the Fighting Cock is about taking the conversations that you have in the pub at football and putting a microphone. The only difference is the fact that we're not actually at the football. Other than that, it's a conversation between men who feel the same way as I do. The vast majority is about Tottenham, is about football, but then the rest of it's a window to ourselves. And again, this isn't this kind of philosophical approach to podcasting and the stuff we produce. There's only so much talking about Spurs we can do. We love our club, we hope they do great, but fuck it, it's a tiny part of our lives. It has to be.
This is such a broad question. I'm intrigued to know what your answer is. Why do you love Spurs so much?
I love Spurs so much genuinely because of my brothers and my dad. It wouldn't mean... I love Tottenham. I really do. I think about the best moments of my life have been at Spurs. I've been at White Hart Lane and away from home as well. You can't describe to people who don't get football what the feelings conjured within you when you watch your team score that important goal, when you see us do Arsenal for the first time in 10 years. I've taken all kinds of drugs in my life. Nothing has made me feel like Tottenham have. When Harry Kane scored that goal against Arsenal, the curling shot off the post, the euphoria was so intense. It was just everything. But it was not just because of that goal and against them lot, but it was also because I looked around and I saw my brothers feeling the exact same way. And more importantly, my dad, needs a fucking hip operation. He's been going, his first game was in 1961 when we won the double. And to this day, they still make him feel that way. Yeah. And that's the same for any football club. So the combination of my family and the combination with Tottenham is why I love them so much. And no matter how bad we get, I'll always have that connection with them. And no matter how good Arsenal get, I'll always hate them and think they're inferior to us.
Well, that was the other thing I wanted to talk about with it. Is because initially, and I'm pleased that the deepest root is your family, and is sharing that moment when the ball crosses the line and you're allowed to shake people and go crazy for absolutely no reason. In no other element of society you're allowed to behave that way. No. And long may that continue. Yeah, and sure. That doesn't get old. No. But you are also a person who, as much love as you've got for so many people, so much patience you've got for people, I don't know a football fan who hates another club as much as you hate Arsenal.
I hate Arsenal as much as I love Tottenham.
Is that a shame?
Or is it an excellent part of my life to funnel all my hatred into? Like, just reserve it for them.
Yeah.
So no one else who actually I choose to spend time with will get any of that hatred and funnel it all into that club.
What percentage of your hatred for Arsenal is brainwashing? What element of it is reasoned, and what element of it is experiences?
I grew up in a house where Tottenham was a good word and Arsenal was a bad word. We grew up in Holloway, which is bandit country. Arsenal play in Highbury beforehand, but moved to Ashburton Grove, which is literally from my bedroom window as a kid, I can see their stadium. So brainwashing was a massive part of it. I mean, my dad loathes them. Like
is that a water torture in itself? Looking out your window and just seeing it when it's already been planted in your mind.
Yeah, because
that's bad.
No, it was for a long time, but I kind of compartmentalised Arsenal Football Club now, so that nothing they can do can hurt me anymore. I went through a lot of dealing with Arsenal's sort of successes, and then kind of now that I just see them as a fucking weird thing that's a part of my relationship with Tottenham, and I love it when they lose that kind of thing. But it isn't what it used to be to be fair. But I do still hate them. But yeah, there was a brainwashing element to it. What was the experiences? Yeah, like the late 90s, 2000s, they were incredible. You know, they had the invincible season. They had an incredible. So you know, we had Gary Doherty up front, and they had Thierry Henry.
The mix of that as well, like the Man United, Liverpool was still, you know, they'd finished third, they'd finished fourth. You were 10th. It was so mediocre for so long.
But before Levy took over in 2001, we were 14th, 10th, 14th, 12th, I think.
Which is ridiculous for a club of Spurs' size, really.
Yeah.
When you
but
think
we
about
weren't
it
that.
now.
I mean, yeah, but all clubs were much smaller then. It wasn't like football is now.
Yeah.
You know? And just generally, they're an odious football club. And
is that the reason bit? What percentage of reason then? Is there a lot of it reasoned, or do you know what you're doing? Do you know you're turning it that way instead of spinning it that way?
What do you mean? Turning it that way and spinning it that way?
Spinning it to a negative because of the brainwashing and the negative experiences of losing to them at different times in that period that you had to go to.
Yeah,
the reasoned element, you're going, I want to reason it that way.
Yeah, for sure. I'm gonna be impacted by the damage that they've done to me. You know, I managed to make Ian Wright apologise to me, because he made me cry when I was 8 and he scored a last-minute goal against Spurs. To his credit, he said, "Look, it was just a job. Didn't want to make you feel that way." That's true. This is on record. It's on the Long Bullshit podcast.
You're not going to the football to watch a matinee. Are you part of this game or not? If you're part of this game, then you've got a side. If you've got a side, then you want that team to win. And if you want that team to win, then you want the other team to fuck off.
Yeah, and the difference between... And I would say that my... When Arsenal, and this is my problem with Arsenal, if you want to get into this, my problem with Arsenal growing up, the biggest insult I ever received from an Arsenal fan was when they started caring about Chelsea more. When they had that competitive element where they were on an equal footing with Chelsea and were going for the leagues and whatnot, and Chelsea always seemed to pip them to it. But I was like, what? It's just because there's suddenly a bully's come along that you're not interested in what we're doing anymore? Is that... Do you actually fucking understand the history between our two clubs?
There's a large element of that. It's you always hate the guy just in front of you.
Yeah, but you can't replace a genuine hatred with another one. You either hate something and think, I don't feel that way about it anymore. And I always thought to myself, would that be the same if Tottenham ever became better than Arsenal? And I've said things in the past which would just try and dismiss Arsenal because I make them feel the way I felt when they dismissed Tottenham. And there's nothing in this world. Arsenal could be in League 2 and they come to Tottenham and I would want to fucking destroy them so that their players would have to have their contracts ripped up. It's a strange thing. Maybe it's because I've gone through so much abuse in a footballing sense.
I get it. I find it interesting that it's something...
I want that from an Arsenal supporter as well. I want them to say, I feel the exact same way about you. And the Arsenal fans I've connected with the most are the ones that hate Tottenham.
8 months after meeting Flav, I've got friends that I love so dearly. They are like family to me. But he jumped the queue. That's how much I love this guy.
I always felt uncomfortable about that.
For me, when I was making that decision, it was like, who do I need there if I have a little panic? And because of what we'd gone through with Ball Street, it was me and you, that off you go, stepping into this whole YouTube thing. And we'd had that connection. I was just like, I definitely need Flav there. I definitely would need Flav there. So, although we've been talking about football, we're talking about everything, I just wanted to answer this question because I think this could really help some people. Because the point of the process is that everyone has a story. Everyone has their own opinion on things. Everyone has their own way of navigating through life. And when I think of you, I think of someone so well put together, which I know you might. Yeah, I knew you were going to shake your head at that. But the question I wanted to ask is, can you describe yourself? It doesn't have to be for too long, but describe yourself in your teens, and then then your 20s, what you went through, and then where you are as a person in your 30s.
Describe myself.
Because I think from the conversations that we've had, you've been on a journey. I know it's a wanky thing to say, but you've been on a journey, and it's like all blokes are, or all women are, whatever. I remember having a chat, and we were talking about what other people think of you, and you kind of gave me a bit of advice on something like, look, if they let you down, then you put up the wall and you go, that's it, you've had your chance, sorry, that's it. And I'd never thought about it like that, and I take those things on board, and I think about those, because I know that's another thing that we connect on. I think we do think about who we are and how we act. And so that's why I want to ask you, as someone who, I think most people, you might not think this, but people who watch it or listen to The Fighting Cock, they'll go, this guy knows who he is. Do you think you know who you are?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do.
So in your teens, what words come to mind when you think of what you went through in your teens? Doesn't have to be long.
No, what words? I mean, I feel
words, thoughts,
insecure, unable, weak, unconfident, but willing.
That's good. That's class.
Willing to give it a go. And do you know what? The biggest thing was women at that age. It was really hard because
full stop.
I wasn't. It was really hard all the time. It was tough because I didn't wanted women. I wanted all the girls that I met, and I wanted them to. Just wanted to lose my virginity, to be honest. And then it didn't happen, and until I got to about 18. But all of that is coming of age. That's
absolutely.
What most kids go
That's
through.
what I'm getting at.
Yes.
So then,
but in my 20s,
it's
a different thing. It's a different thing, and I believe in this kind of. There's like a series of sevens in people's lives. So 1 to 7 are formative years. 7 to 14, you change immeasurably in that time, physically, and then from 14 to 21, you start to come through a mental development. But from 21 to 27 was the most difficult period in my life because I was in a challenging relationship, but not challenging because the other person was bad or tried me. It's just shit happened in our relationship that meant that it was tough. In my early 20s, went through a lot of bad stuff with mental health issues, basically, that a lot of people go through, and people should be talking. And even though I know everyone should be open and talking about these things, it's still difficult for me to talk about because it's I kind of want to forget it and let it go. But yeah, I had a massive kind of mental struggle and a realization about my own mortality. Actually, you know what? I don't want to talk about it in detail because I don't want to plant the thoughts in other people's heads because that's what's happened to me. Right. But I went through some stuff that made me very anxious, and I went through a long process and of trying to be okay.
Yeah.
And I think in the 20s is a lot. That process happens for a lot of people.
I agree. I think there's so much doubt in your 20s. Is it going to be all right? That's the kind of thing. That's definitely that was the problems that I would constantly have, and I still have those worries, but just not to the same extent now because it has worked out a lot. On a personal level, it's worked out in a huge way.
Like I don't have many tattoos. I've got an arm full here, but all of these tattoos are as a direct response to the feelings I felt when I was in my 20s. At
the time, yeah.
And they help me cope. And every time I have lingers of it, and at 37, I still have pangs of anxiety. I still have anxiety issues. I still have, I wouldn't say panic attacks, but I have flushes of anxiety for no real reason. And I kind of look at my arm, and it helps me process what's going on in my head.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
But I don't, like I said, I don't want to. I know people are going to think, well, what is it? Like if they're watching still,
it's none of their business.
It's not that. It's not about none of their business. If I thought it could help someone, then I would. But I know that this sort of stuff is triggering, and I don't want to plant it in someone else's head.
And then what about? And then 30s.
30s are great, man. The 30s are.
I've never spoken to someone in their 30s who's gone. it's not great.
No, it's great.
Because you think, you go, when you turn 30, you go, oh no.
No, yeah.
Like, that's it, isn't it? Like, my youth's over.
Yeah, no, it's nothing like that. It's nothing like that. This decade has been so good to me. And I think it's because you finally get over that feeling about who the fuck you are. You think you have identity issues when you're in your teens. 20s can be a big of a struggle. But in the 30s, I was like, I know what I am. I know what I want. I know I don't give a fuck if someone else has an issue. I don't have to be as good as someone else wants me to be. It doesn't matter anymore. I'm making money. I can pay my own rent. I don't have to rely on anybody. I can go out and talk to birds, and I don't give a shit if they reject me in that instance. And the fact is, if you develop that mentality, the vast majority of them won't. Well, not the vast majority, but the majority of the people women you talk to, if that's what your goal is, if you stop giving a fuck whether you're going to be rejected, that's much more appealing to them. And that mindset is something that you appeal in generally. You care less. You care less, and that's such a freeing thought. If you stop caring what other people think and only care about what people closest to you think of you, and I didn't choose to feel that way. I just suddenly became that.
Often people talk about, seek discomfort. Just go for it. Just back yourself. That is dangerous talk sometimes, because there's a lot of X Factor contestants who've gone for that, and they've looked really, really stupid. And so you've got to kind of have an awareness to understand that, like, yeah, I can do this. But also there's moments where you've got to kind of be brave and take a little jump. And I think that's what you're doing here. But I also, when you've explained the stuff like the live shows that are going to be happening, like I've been to a live show at for the Fighting Cock, and it's fucking ace, man. It's so good.
It's a lot of fun. It's
so good. And you can dedicate more time to the podcast. I think there's talk about new podcasts as well, right?
Yep.
Can we talk about it, the 30%?
Yeah, for sure.
30% is just like the guys who listened to the last 30% of the podcast.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So the Fighting Cock, as we explained earlier on in the video, is that most of it's about Spurs, and if that's what you want, you can listen to it. But the last 5-10 minutes are about anything. There's no holds bars really, and what we looked at once we were able to see the analytics of the pod, that there's about 30% of people that listen to it all the way through every week. And that was so revealing to me, because I wasn't bothered that 70% was dropping off. I was like, fucking hell, who are these guys?
Yeah, yeah.
It's
a good way of looking at it.
Yeah, yeah. Because they're like, oh, fuck, they're the people that are interested in what we really want to talk about outside of Spurs.
Yeah.
So if I can do that, and let's make a podcast just for the 30%, and then, because it's not about Spurs, it's less restrictive, so maybe that 30% will tell their mates and they might get something from it. Don't get me wrong, there's not a massive, huge audience for the 30% podcast.
Yet.
Because, but also because how much can you talk about masturbation, porn, a previous experience of shagging women, getting caught wanking, that kind of thing, without it being a little bit, and it isn't all that kind of stuff. We're going to talk about other things that are going on in the world as well to make it a little bit more palatable. But, we just figured out that there are people out there that want to listen to that stuff, and that's really given me an extra enthusiasm, because talking about Spurs for 7.5 years, I'm still enthusiastic. I still love it, but sometimes you need to refresh, and I think this podcast can help me do that.
Wicked, right?
And the other people involved.
Well, yeah, I'm looking forward to listening to that and supporting everything that you're doing, mate. We're mates for life. And,
for sure. Mate.
Yeah, no, I know now. I'm just
letting them know.
Yeah, so back off. All right, he's mine. No, but I just, mate, that Flav has said like 3 or 4 times, like, are you sure you want to do it? Are you sure you want to sit down? Mate, yeah. I fucking love you to bits, mate.
I love you too.
You're a smart man, and you are going to go out there with a lack of confidence because you're that nice a bloke. No. And with that lack of confidence, you're going to work so fucking hard and you're going to smash it. And people, that's another reason why people love you.
That's really lovely for you to say. Please don't say it again. The only thing I'm confident about is the Fighting Cock. And if I can't make that work, it will never work. So I've got to find that out.
The good news for everyone who's a One for the Weekend fan or a Ball Street fan is that Flav will always be a part of the Ball Street family, will always be on videos. One for the Weekend is still with us.
One for the Weekend is the best podcast, the best thing I've done.
Mate, I fucking love that podcast, man.
It is great. It is
so
great.
good.
Like, if any of you lot out there that are not listening to the One for the Weekend podcast or watching it on YouTube, then you should be, because it's going to make your life better. And that's not because me and him are good at what we do, although we're fucking good at what we do. It's because of the massive community that's been created. I love it. It's my favourite thing to do each week. It's so funny.
Cheers, mate. I love you.
I love you.
That was Flav, The Process. What a great guy. Maybe you should go and support him. I'm sure there's something, he hasn't figured out the details yet.
I'm still here.
Put it, I know still. Would you know the details of, what was it, Patreon? Are we doing that?
Yeah.
I'm just trying to...
Look, I mean,
Well, I want to do it.
okay.
So Flav, I'd imagine, needs money. So there's probably this Patreon thing, which will be a link. It'll be the first comment. Go and click on that. Go and support Flav.
You can.
Shut up. Go and do it. This guy is a great guy. Trust me. Shh, less. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments below who I should interview next on the James Lawrence Allcott channel. If you've enjoyed this, then check out the other episodes of The Process. We've got Chris Pajek, we've got Paul McGregor and Smiv. And hit subscribe as well if you feel like I deserve it. I'll see you soon.